After being in pretty severe trauma for 10 years, it reshaped my whole body, and I ended up with a scoliosis because my body was holding fear from the trauma. I was sexually abused, which led me to become a very insecure and low self-esteem. And then I was bullied in school, which basically took away whatever self-esteem I may have had. And then in my teenage years, I became self-destructive, and trauma has manifested in the way of injuries because I'm a very sensitive person. I'm very sensitive to energies. I make my whole body in the spine, and all the fascia was so twisted. The first thing I was introduced was to a psychologist that was doing EMDR specifically for trauma. I spent the first 5 months, I spent about 4 to 5 hours a day of fascia release and correction exercises to realign my body. It's not whatever that happened to me, it's also whatever my parents or grandparents, it's passed down, both trauma and environmental factors. So exercise is such a good way of releasing, and that's how I cope with my trauma. But when movement is taken away from you, when you're injured, that is the most challenging thing. All the things, they all involve that you actually get outside, move to nature, but if you can't, how do you release the fear or like the stress or the trauma?
An exploration of trauma, transformation, and triumph. Your healing starts here. On Through the Trauma podcast, we don't just talk about transformation, we ignite it. This season, I'm inviting you to something extraordinary. It's called the burn ceremony. Picture this, a guided, powerful ritual where we symbolically burn away all of the old versions of yourself that's no longer serving you. This is not just a ceremony, it's a rebirth. A chance to let the flames of transformation forge you into your new identity. And whether you're ready to break old chains or step into your next level of unstoppable, this is your moment. Join us for the burn ceremony and experience a shift like never before. Head on over to our website at www.burnitceremony.com and claim your spot, because this year, we're going to rise from the ashes together. And we are back with another episode of Through the Trauma podcast. I am Amber, your host, and today I have with me a very interesting guest. She aligns very much so with a lot of things that I align with, and I'm excited to have her on today. We have Miss Tess Moss. She is a mind-body detox coach. She's an SLM bodywork therapist, a Reiki healer, an author, and she comes out of personal training, so she's also a body expert. Tess, thank you so much for being on with us today and coming on to share your expertise with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is all mine. I'm so excited to jump into this conversation because before we jumped on, we were talking a little bit about what your background and what you have going on. And I was telling you the main areas that you really are an expert in highly align with what I think and feel and have my entire work prior to this podcast, during this podcast, and even currently. I know I gave a quick introduction, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I professionally, I started off as a personal trainer, which I did for 8 years. And then I evolved into an advanced type of myotherapy called SLM Bodyworks, which specialized in alignment and body balancing. So and then I progressed into nutritional coaching and detox specialist. But it's actually my own healing journey that has formed my career path.
Before you jump into that, can you explain I think I have an idea of what myotherapy is, but I'm not exactly sure. And I want to be sure that my listeners understand what that is as well. So can you explain a little bit about what that is?
So that treatment I do, it's a full body deep tissue massage, and I work really deep, like loosening up the muscles on the deepest level and realign the fascia. So if a lot of injuries and pain and chronic pains comes from misalignments and imbalances in the body. So it's actually forms the body, shapes it so it becomes aligned again and takes away whatever pressure that causing pain. So that's basically what I have been doing for 17 years.
Yeah. I can relate to that because
Yeah.
I have scoliosis, and it wasn't until I started seeing, which you're in Australia, I'm in the US, and I have a guy here who he doesn't explain it as would you say myotherapy?
It's not traditional myotherapy, but it's an advanced type of myotherapy. It's more
Gotcha.
effective than myotherapy in my
Yeah.
own opinion. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's exactly the same thing, but I will say that I was seeing a chiropractor regularly and I was having chronic pain. And until I started seeing him, that I don't have chronic pain anymore. So I'm I believe in that. I attest to that work
Yeah.
completely because I know that we had spoke a little bit about this, and we'll get into this more as after we hear your story and
Yeah.
everything. But I do want to just ask this. Do you think that trauma gets stuck in the
Yes.
fascia and in the muscle and in the tissues?
100%. And that's exactly what I was going to talk about here today, because after being in pretty severe trauma for 10 years, it reshaped my whole body. And I ended up with a scoliosis like you did. And the reason I was stuck in it for so long and I couldn't break free from it was because my body was holding fear from the trauma. And it wasn't until I managed to figure out that I needed to release fear in conjunction or doing fascia release that I actually could realign my spine and get rid of the scoliosis.
Oh,
Um,
this is going to be an exciting conversation. So I'm going to stop you there and we'll get into this more as we continue on the podcast. But I do want you to share a little bit of your story
yeah,
because, and I don't even know her story, by the way. We didn't get into much of that. Just basics. Go ahead
yeah,
and share a little bit about kind of what has led you here to this
yeah.
kind of work and how you healed yourself.
So, I guess I've been exposed to several types of trauma throughout my life, and it started off in my childhood. I was sexually abused, which led me to become a very insecure and low self-esteem. And then I was bullied in school, which basically took away whatever self-esteem I may have had. And then in my teenage years, I became self-destructive and was exposed to more sexual abuse. And but somehow in my early 20s, I just did a complete flip and became a fitness fanatic, and that became like my healing tool. Like I found something that felt really good from doing, and it was like a coping mechanism for the past trauma, I guess. It gave me confidence for the first time in my life, and through training really heavily. And that's obviously how I became a personal trainer, because fitness was my passion. But from this heavily training schedule I was doing, it also revealed some really severe imbalances in my body. So I was constantly being injured. And it took me many years to find a treatment that actually could help me sort out the imbalances, which was the SLM bodywork treatment that I became a therapist and started doing that instead. But even though I focused so much on aligning my body all the time, and I was an expert of fixing everybody else, my own imbalance was something I had to keep working on daily to maintain. Otherwise, I would just get things back. So, and I do believe that that is shaped from trauma. It's just, it's stuck in the body and it twists you. It also developed a few autoimmune diseases like type 1 diabetes and Hashimoto's. And through this, I also developed an interest in healing myself from that. So I did heaps of research and trialing different detoxes and diets. And eventually I reversed Hashimoto's through a 31-day green juice fast. And that's when I became a detox specialist, because I also wanted to help other people doing that sort of stuff as well. And then a few years later, I had another trauma experience, which was a violent attack in my own house when I was sleeping. And it took me about 6 years before I actually realized that I was traumatized from it. But my whole world was changed after that experience. Nothing ever became the same. I stopped sleeping. I had extreme adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue and migraines. I couldn't work, I couldn't train. And yeah, it kept going for pretty much 10 years. I felt like I was in prison. At the same time, I also had several injuries. I had a fracture like right at the beginning of the trauma started, and then right at the end I had another one, and the last one was about 3 years ago before I sort of got free from this. That caused me to be isolated in my apartment for 8 months on my own. So that in itself sort of caused a trauma experience where I felt trapped and helpless. And these 10 years, because what had happened, and it took me a long time to realize the pattern because I'm a very driven person, I'm very motivated, and anything that I put my mind to, I will achieve. But what I did notice since this violent attack happened, that power disappeared. It didn't matter how much effort I actually put into doing something because I always wanted to heal myself, I always wanted to, build up my business again, and I just continue failing. Nothing would ever work. It was more like something will happen and I will heal myself, and then as soon as I felt like, okay, I'm feeling better now, and now I can move forward, then something else would happen and rip the rug out of me. And, when that loop continues on for 10 years, you eventually lose faith in yourself and in life in general. And it took me the 10 years to, to figure out that actually what was causing this loop, if that makes sense. So,
Do you think there's reasoning, or have you come to a conclusion as to like why certain people maybe go through things like you said, several situations happen, the rug's getting ripped out from under you, and you are trying to figure out what is going on?
mm.
Do you think that there's certain people that have more, I guess, like are exposed to more trauma than others?
I have thought about this a lot actually, and I don't actually know, to be honest. I do think that people may deal with things in different ways. And I think maybe one of the reason is why it has, because obviously in me, the trauma has manifested in the way of injuries and illness. But I think it's because I'm a very sensitive person. I'm very sensitive to energies. I'm very sensitive. Whatever that's around me, I will absorb, because I know some people, they can go through a lot of things, but it doesn't affect them, right? They just continue with their life like nothing ever happens. And that's the only thing I can put it down to. We have different awarenesses of how we react to things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Mm,
I've often had that question myself. Sometimes I think that people are called like for whatever destiny they have in this world, like what their calling is, what their purpose is here on this earth, that
yeah,
sometimes it requires, I think growth comes through pain. Sometimes it
yeah,
pushes us into doing things that we may not have otherwise wanted to do. Sometimes comfort leaves us stagnant. And
yeah.
I've often wondered that myself. But you just said something interesting as well that I want to talk about is, have you ever heard, or do you believe yourself to be an empath? Have you ever heard the term empath?
Yes, yes, I have. Yeah. Yes, I'm definitely one of those. But I think I have learned to control it so I don't take everything on board. Yeah, which is
Hmm.
quite difficult sometimes to learn. But
Yeah.
I think I have managed to set boundaries. I constantly have to protect myself because otherwise the world eats me up, basically.
And you
Yeah.
just said it right there.
Yeah.
Because I also am an empath, and I've come to that exact same conclusion. I
Yeah.
felt for many years when things would happen and I would wear them on my sleeve. And honestly, trauma is what bore this podcast. And
Yeah.
when I started the podcast, I thought I can't do this because I'm having to listen to people's stories of trauma, and that I feel that I carry that. I wear those
Yeah.
stories, and it was hard. But what you just said something so impactful is that you have to set boundaries around that. If you are an empath, if you're listening to this, you're an empath, you have to set boundaries around that. Or I'm going to quote you here. You said the world will eat you up, and it
Yeah.
will. I truly believe that empathy is a gift. It's a beautiful gift because we
Mm.
are intuitive as
Yes.
empaths. We do have the ability to read energy and to feel people's energy. And if something's off, we have that. That's a beautiful gift that
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have, but you have to know how to use it, and you have to
That's
be
right.
careful
And
with
it
it
takes time
because
to learn that. It did for me anyway, but obviously my
Mhm.
intuition has just got stronger and stronger over this last few years as I've been healing. Yeah, it's pretty incredible how intuitive I am.
It
But
makes
also
total sense.
but my boundaries has also become stronger. So I think when had stronger boundaries, the intuition actually became stronger as well.
Yeah. Well, it makes total sense as well that you are everything that you are. You're focused on holistic wellness, really. I mean,
Yeah.
being a personal trainer, yes, you want to look good and feel good and all the things, but that the physical body through detoxing, through physical fitness, through exercise, those movement, those things it's all wellness related.
Yeah.
And I love that you are a detox coach as well. And I do want to hear a little bit more about the healing from that perspective, because I know you've healed yourself from several types of trauma. And
Hmm.
for those people that may be struggling, like talk to us a little bit about that journey of what that
Yeah.
looks like and those different modalities that you've used to get to where you are today.
Yes. So if we're going to focus on the trauma from the violent attack, and how, like, because it reshaped my whole body, in the spine and all the fascia, I was so twisted. So when I actually did manage to get to a physio that pointed out what's going on with me, he said I was one of the top 6 worst cases he's seen in his 20 years as a physio, and nobody could ever release it. And I could feel what's going on, but I just couldn't get in deep enough to get it happening. But what actually changed from breaking free from this trauma loop, or the fear loop, I was going to say, is because that was the reason why I was stuck in this loop that I constantly breaking down. I fix something and I constantly break down. It was because of the fear that was stuck in my body. And when I realized that, and actually how I realized that was, I was introduced to Joe Dispenza meditations, and I thought, yeah, I need to change the um, the habit of being myself, right? Because I desperately wanted to get back to, or get to a new person, not the old one, the new one. So I started doing visualization meditations every morning, and the only thing I could feel was fear. I was so full of fear that I was like, I can't visualize anything good or new while I'm full of fear. I started thinking how I'm going to release the fear, so I started doing tapping every day and TRE exercises, which is like shaking to get rid of trauma out of the system, and breath work, all based to release the fear. And after a few weeks, I could feel how the fear was melting out of my system and I could start visualize. So when I was visualizing, that's when I could start to see the steps on how to actually break free from this loop I was in. And the first thing I was introduced was to a psychologist that was doing EMDR specifically for trauma. And she was a perfect match for me. So I worked with her. And then I was also introduced to this physio that could actually tell me exactly what's going on and that I had a scoliosis. And from then on, I just magically happened to move into a new place that had this desk in my room that had a steel bar on it that was perfect for fascia release, because any other tool I had used in the past was not digging in deep enough. So this new tool was my gateway into reshape my body. And I spent the first 5 months, I spent about 4 to 5 hours a day of fascia release and correction exercises to realign my body. And then after that, the back released. So the lower part of my spine was actually straight for the first time. And then I was stuck in bed for 3 months because the muscles around the spine were so weak. So they couldn't, they needed time to adjust and get strong enough to hold my spine in the new position, because this has probably been stuck like this for, I don't know, 20 years, who knows, maybe all my life. And after that, I just been, continuing reshaping my body. And yeah, that's how.
What causes is the stress builds up and then the fascia and the muscle tightens and
I
then
think
just
so. Yeah.
over time staying in that
Yes.
position, it starts to shift your spine.
Yeah. And also I think trauma, because it's like the body wants to twist to hold it safe somehow. Like the rib cage will tighten and get a grip around you. Like we got to protect, and we got to protect the heart, right? Because that's where you're vulnerable. So the body will cramp up and hold. I didn't breathe through my chest at all for years. There was no space until I loosened everything up properly so I could actually feel like I could breathe again. And yeah, that's one thing. And also with the detoxing that I do, that's another important part, because when you detox and releases toxins out of the body through food, that will actually lower inflammation in the body, which allows you to be able to dig in deeper to release the fascia. Because I've worked on so many clients over the years that are so tight, but they don't have the capability of letting me go deep enough to release it because they're so sensitive. And that comes from inflammation and the poor diet, basically, and toxins. And also, like, and you can feel when I massage people, I can feel when it's trauma stuck in the muscles. Like, if I reach a layer where I actually releasing the trauma, they will feel it. They will, get some sort of experience afterwards. Maybe they have like an emotional release of some sort. And I felt that a lot myself when I was releasing the fascia on this really, really deep level, especially when I got to the deepest layer in my hips. And that has never been released in my life that deep. Like, it was like I was clean. That's how I felt. And it started to bring out nightmares about events from my teenage years that I have, I probably ever think about, but it was traumatizing things that has happened. And it was like dreams that was not traumatizing. It was more like a resolved dream. So it's like we have closed this loop. That's how it felt. Like it is finally released. So the fascia release is just as important as the EMDR when you're doing, well, at least was for me. And maybe not everybody is the same, but because I'd released so much trauma when I was doing all this fascia release.
How did you find a practitioner to help you do this that understands? I guess where I'm really trying to figure out is if someone had trauma trapped in their bodies and
Mm.
they wanted to do that through like a physical massage therapy or getting in and breaking that up. I know I have a ton of stuff. Every time I go see my guy, he
Yeah.
like breaks a lot of stuff. I don't think there's enough time in the day
No,
that
and
would wear him
that's the
out.
thing.
But how do you
I can do it in my treatments because I know what to do, but there's not enough time to spend on a person to get in that deep. That's why I had to do it myself. And the first session I did, I spent 5 hours in one day
on
uh,
yourself?
on myself. And that was like super, super deep work.
Do
And
you
I don't,
have
there's not many people that even can tolerate that because I have very high pain tolerance when it comes to fascia release because I've been doing it so much on myself and I eat a very clean diet. So it's not many people that actually could handle it. But if you're, keen to actually fix something, yes, I think the best thing would be to find someone that can actually read the body and give you an idea of what's going on and then do your own work. So like 20% comes from the therapist that guides you and might give you the full body treatment. And you can, start the process with someone, but also do a lot of work at home because it's not possible to get it all done just by
Yeah,
seeing somebody once a week or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that. Do you have, recommendations if, like, say someone wanted to start this kind of work on themselves at home? Do you recommend that? I know that sometimes with trauma, it's one of these things where it's like, you have to be careful not to tap into things that are
Mm,
still trying to be resolved, I guess, is for lack of a better
yeah,
way of putting it.
I
But what
guess.
recommendation do you have for that? And if someone wanted to start something like this to tap into that, would you say do it or not do
Yeah,
it?
yes, definitely do it, but start off gently, I guess. Maybe if you've never done any work like this before, it's probably better to go to someone that you can work with. And it's hard to say exactly who that person is. That's because that's going to be individual for the person itself. For me, SLM Bodywork was the one to go, and I know it is very effective, but it's not available in America, so it's more an Australian, and it's not many people here doing it either. I'm very unique in what I do. But I also offer coaching in fascia release. So if anyone wants to do online, I can, guide them through it. But I still recommend to find someone that can actually feel them as well, whoever that may
Mhm.
be. If it's someone
Yeah.
that has someone that works holistically is the best shot, that
Yeah.
has intuition, that knows about trauma and things like that, because then it will be released in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me a little bit, because I know you're also a Reiki healer, and I know that that's something you said you kind of added on, which is a great asset, I would think, to have in your line of work. But how do you see energy relating to this, or even what got you interested in becoming a Reiki healer? Like, make that connection for me.
Yeah, I the only reason I did the Reiki healing was because I thought it could be something that could be good for my own body to heal myself. And it actually did shift. It was had a big breakthrough when I did the course. But I think I don't actually specifically do Reiki when I see a client. It just comes automatically. I think it's something that when I touch people, when I work with them, I think it just comes automatically. And because I think I have the gift of doing that. And I know people that have felt me giving them like healing or Reiki healing even before I even did the course. So I think it's something that just happens
Mm.
naturally, yeah. But it's not like a wow factor when it comes to Reiki. But it does shift things in a very subtle way.
And why do you think that is? Do you think it has to do more with intention, or do you think it has to do with just some invisible? I mean, like, it's weird trying to explain energy to people. It's like
Yeah,
it's an invisible force, but it's so real. It's like probably more real than physical. Really, what we are is made up of energy.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
mind-boggling to me. Like it's fascinating.
Yeah, well, it's the intention, really, isn't it? And if you open up to something and allow it to come in, then it's going to come. So Reiki is really just opening up the channel from the energy that's like the good energy to get it into your body. That's all it is. There's nothing hocus pocus about it.
Yeah. So I'll tell you something funny. So I come from a Christian background. I am still a Christian. I mean, I definitely veered my own path, but come back to being a Christian. And I was really nervous the first time I did any type of energy healing, but I was desperate because I had gone through my own set of trauma and I was just desperate. And I did feel like it was hocus pocus.
Okay,
At
yeah.
first, at first I had never been exposed to it. I was raised in what we call here in America the Bible Belt. And it was one of these things that you just don't touch it if you don't understand it, you don't touch it, right?
Mm,
And it wasn't until I got really like where I was going through a divorce, which was a long process. And in that process, I was distraught. I was looking for healing and some type of peace. And I had an interaction with a healer who I'm still friends with to this day. She's amazing.
yeah.
And once I had that experience, I had to understand how this all works. And that's been 6, 7 years ago. And I have become completely intrigued by it. And I believe if people could tap in to exactly what you just said, the intention and and what energy really is, like our whole physicality is built up of energy. Our
Mm,
cells are down
yeah.
to and I'm not a scientist, so let me not get too scientific, but it's intriguing. And for those of you who are listening, if you haven't ever gone down that path, I would encourage you to do so because it's a very interesting path to go down. And it does play a huge part in the whole holistic wellness. We have
Yes.
our physical body, we have our emotional self, the emotions that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. We have, the energetic, what's happening. And I think Tony Robbins says this is our energy in motion. So I do believe all of this plays a part. And when we're dealing with trauma, it is so important to understand how all of these things affect us. And these types of things, emotions, like you said, can get trapped in the body. Emotions can cause us to get sick. And you mentioned something earlier, which I would love for you to explain a little bit more your thoughts on this. You said you had several autoimmune. Did you say several
Hmm.
autoimmune disorders?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you believe that came from trauma, or at least was kind of trauma helped
Yes.
that along?
I absolutely believe that, because just from research, and I think, yeah, because I had type 1 diabetes. I didn't get it until I was 25, but I do believe that when I have read somewhere that when trauma, the childhood trauma, like, when you're very young, it interrupts your gut flora, and that makes you more perceptive to things. But also the life choices you take as part of this, because when you hate yourself and you're self-destructive, you're not going to choose the right thing for you. You go for the bad things for you. So that's obviously gonna, the environmental things is gonna affect you as well. So I think it's a combination of things. And once the damage is done, and they also say that type 1 diabetes is something that is caused from lack of joy in life. And I don't, yeah, like my life hasn't been very joyful a lot of the times, because I don't know. It's just, yeah, I may have been trying to be happy, but it's always been something in me that's holding me back. Like I don't deserve that sort of thing. So I know that comes from trauma and how you believed yourself to be as a child and as you grew up. So I definitely believe that is a big part of it. Because if I would have been a happy, healthy person, I would have, from right from the go, then um, my immune system wouldn't been as disrupted as it was. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also a genetic thing as well. Whatever that, it's not whatever that happened to me. It's also whatever my parents or grandparents, it's passed
Mm.
down, both trauma and environmental factors. So toxins in the body that they had, that will be passed into me, which accumulates. And if you have a sensitive nervous system and a sensitive body already from the trauma, it will just manifest. And over time, it will just explode into whatever that needs to be. It's a signal for the body saying, hey, we're not happy here. So we're going to break down this part. Yeah.
I totally agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. It's very interesting how our body holds so much. And there's a book, it comes up often here on the podcast called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
And I was intrigued when I first read that book about how much our body holds. I do believe there's a way to overcome that. I mean, obviously, we're talking about several modalities here that you
Yes.
can overcome that, but you're not hopeless and helpless through that process. There are things that you can do. And, just like you said, Tess, there's like different things are going to work different for different people, and different traumas are going to affect different people in different ways. So I could have the exact same trauma you had, and maybe I'm thriving because it was, on a level of 1 to 10, it was maybe a 5. And
Mm.
then you're not thriving because yours was a level 10. And we could have a totally another trauma where the roles are reversed. I'm a 10 and you're a 5. So it really depends on how we perceive it, which I would love to get your thoughts on that, as far as how much do you think mindset has to do with how we handle trauma and how
Mm.
trauma is perceived? Do you think our perception of that trauma and how we frame it in our mindset, what we think, what we speak about it, how big of a difference does that make in the healing process?
I think yes and no. It makes a big difference, but I mean, it doesn't solve it. I know that much because I always was a very positive person. Even through my deepest thing, I always had hope, and I always did affirmations and trying to actively working on things all the time. It didn't change anything. It wasn't until I actually got to this point, and maybe it's because it needed time to go through all this, because I did lots of different healing things along the way, but it wasn't until I, started to breaking the fear loop that it actually started to change. And that was not just affirmations, that was visualizations as well, combined with the active work of trauma release through EMDR, tapping, whatever, and the fascia release. Like it was never just one thing. It's a combination of things. And affirmations, unless you do the other stuff, they did nothing.
I agree
Yeah,
with you.
unfortunately. I know they would be good if it was the other way around, but no, it didn't change anything. And yeah, positive thinking is good, but it didn't change my trauma loop. It certainly
Hmm.
didn't, because I would break down, my body would break down, and it would take me months to heal it. And then once I felt, yes, I can move forward now, and I was so positive and I could see this vision of my new life ahead of me, then something even more dramatic would happen to me and rip my life away for another year. And then I had to build up my life again. And this happened several times.
Hmm.
It just didn't stop
I actually
until I
have a
broke the fear.
I have a theory about this, actually, that I've been meditating on a lot recently, is this idea because I also believe that affirmations, they have a place. They're a beautiful thing to do. And I don't want to say don't work at all, because I found a
No.
lot of help through affirmations.
Yes.
However, you're describing it as a loop, like this loop or this reoccurring pattern that keeps coming back up. In your case, it was fear and awareness. You've been able to pinpoint that. But I've been meditating on this idea of identity. And I believe that a lot of times we get stuck in this identity, which is, this is my own personal journey as well, like where I've come to in my own life. Because when I look at things and I say, I'm stuck in this loop that you're talking about, or pattern, where is that coming from? And I think once you can have awareness, this thing is coming from this, then it's like, now I have to get rid of that identity. Like we have to almost shift who we are.
Mm.
It does take like speaking those things over, because I do think our words carry energy and power. But I think that it, like exactly what you said, there's so many things that go into it. But I think in our minds, if we can shift this idea of, hey, I am not this person anymore. I am this kind of person. I'll give you an example. When I was really young, when I was in school, like high school and stuff, I was super skinny. I was like 98 pounds. I'm 5'4". So I was pretty skinny, like lanky. I always had kind of like wider bone structure. So I just felt really lanky. And to everybody else, they just don't even care. But to me, I felt really insecure about that. And I remember growing up, I would go look at like bodybuilding magazines, because I'm like, that's what I want to look like. I want to become this person. And I didn't understand any of this kind of work or nothing when I was, when I was in high school. But as I got older, I realized I did this even unknowingly back then. But by shifting from this skinny Amber to this now fitness Amber, like I got heavy into the fitness industry and still am extremely heavy into the fitness industry, and have gone, done competitions and done all the things, right? And it's like I have completely shifted that identity to the point now, 25, almost 30 years later, it's like I'm no longer that skinny girl. Like I'm not her. Now I'm a fitness person. And I identify as that. So I think it's funny, like if we can start to truly identify as something, it does begin to shift our mindsets, especially when we're hit with something that is traumatic. It's like, okay, I'm powerful. I'm empowered, Amber. I can make decisions based on structure, based on the things that is going to help me make the right decisions so that I don't have to fear this. I can weigh out my risks. So I think if we can talk ourselves down, talk ourselves through those things, we can shift our identity, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And that's basically what I did with the visualizations, I guess. And then followed
Yeah.
by the actions of changing how I looked at myself and what I did in life. But what I can say is the identity you're describing, for example, I wasn't that identity before this trauma happened. And there was something that became, what do you call it? A result of life keep failing me, regardless of how much effort I put in and how confident or how fearless I was in trying to change my life, it kept breaking down. And that's when, the body went into more like, okay, it became like a fragile thing that was scared of moving, scared of doing things because I'm just going to break down anyway. My life has proved me that too many times that I just can't trust it anymore. So that was the biggest challenge, to trying to change that habit when I had no proof of that it was going to change, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And that's faith.
Yeah, and that was so hard when you've been through so long time of so many horrible things. Really, it was hard to actually believe that it will change, because every time I felt yes, it's going to get better, then something else would happen, and it was a pattern. So then.
And I love that you just explained that as well, because obviously that's why I love doing these interviews, because I have my own perception of things. And then I
Yeah.
always love to get other people's thoughts and opinions and their own experience. And I think trauma does have a way of causing it's an identity crisis, really, because I may not have been this person before the trauma happens. And then now the trauma has happened. And now I'm experiencing triggers. I'm experiencing dreams or revisits of this particular incident that happened. And that's a hard thing to break free from.
Yeah.
I cannot fully relate. I mean, obviously, I definitely can't relate to your trauma. I can only relate in the sense of, I feel compassion about it, but I can't relate in the sense of having ever gone through it.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's important to notate as well. So with that, what would you tell someone if someone's listening to this podcast and they were like, I just feel like I can't get out of this loop. I'm staying stuck. I keep seeing results of things that has proven to me that I am this identity and I just can't believe that I'm this identity, or I just can't believe that I can ever come out of this thing. What advice would you have for them? Like kind of a general overall advice, but I mean, you can go deep here as well if you want, but I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Look, I can only advise what worked for me, and start with doing that visualization meditation. That's the first step, I reckon, because then you can actually, it will show you what needs to be worked on. And and then if you are in a loop, I would say 99% of the time it would be from fear, because fear shows up in so many different ways, and we all carry fear more than what we should, I think, and we just express it in different ways. Some people keep it in and it manifests in the body. Some people express it in anger, um, and violence, or whatever that feeds them. So I think, yeah, and find the modalities that's going to help you with that. And that can be different from person to person. But for me, it was EMDR. And I can also say, when you're healing, don't expect a smooth ride. If you feel extremely bad, then take that as a good sign, because that is actually when you're healing the most. When you're feeling the worst, it's the body. If you're starting a healing process, when you're releasing something, it's bringing it up, and you're going to feel 10 times worse than what you probably did on your average day. So that's a bit of an advice I can give, is when those days comes up. So if you do EMDR, it might follow with a few days of feeling absolutely hopeless, like right at the bottom, because it brings up the worst that you've been through.
Hmm.
And when you are in that state, you actually feel like, this is how I'm going to stay forever. And then later on, you might get a few days where you feel like on top of the world. It's like, yes, I am back. And then you think, this is how I'm going to stay forever. So, that's something to remember, because it will go in waves. And even when you're in it, and even though I know the information, when I was going through it, it was still something I kept forgetting about, because while you're in it, you just feel whatever's going on. And when
Your
you are in,
emotions,
yeah,
your
and when you
emotions
are,
take a overdrive.
yes, and when you are, and one thing you can remind yourself of is, while you're in the deepest or the lowest, is tell yourself, this will pass, because it's only a matter of a day or two, and you will shift. Regardless how bad it is, energy shifts from day to day. And just find something in a way to work through those bad patches. And one thing that I found that was very effective, that took me a long time to actually manifest, was just to allow it to be, stop resisting it, because I have always been a very persistent person, and I want to fix something, and I do that actively. But sometimes when you actually take a step back and stop resisting and just allow it to be the way it is, that's when real shifts can actually happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. Letting go of what you can't control as well,
Yeah,
just,
but it's
and
very
then
hard when you're in the
so
middle of,
much easier said than done.
yes, it's not
But,
easy.
I something that you touched on that has been helpful to me, especially when it comes to emotions, is if I feel an emotion, if I feel anger or I feel sadness or I feel depression or whatever I feel, if I allow myself, like consciously with the intent of I'm going to allow myself to feel this, and if I want to go punch, into my bed, or if I want to go scream into a pillow or whatever that's going to
Mhm.
help release that. Usually mine's in the gym. I'm like, I'm going to go work out.
Yeah,
And you do movement. Those types of things help you feel better, but allow yourself the opportunity to feel it, and then, and then say, okay, I'm going to feel this for a few moments. I'm going to cry. I'm going to get it out. And then I am going to move past it. I'm going to intentionally say to myself, Amber, get up, move past this. And that has been helpful for me. And then if it comes back, give yourself another opportunity with grace to feel it
yes.
and then move past it. There's a great book about this. It's called Letting Go, one of my all time favorite books. And I can't
Mhm.
remember the author's name right now, but I can put it in the show notes. if you've
Is
listened
it
to this podcast.
Sedona method?
No,
No, it's another one.
it's a yeah, I'll have to email it to you. It's a Yellow book and it's on Audible. I listen to everything on Audible, but it's so
Mm,
good because he talks about the concept of literally letting go of what you can't control
yeah,
and not taking things so personal. He goes in depth in many different angles, but it is a very, very good book about just letting go. And it has taken a ton of stress off of me when I consciously know there's certain things I cannot change. Why am
yeah,
I going to sit and worry about them? Why am I going to try to change them? I
yeah.
can't change. They're beyond my control. All I
I
can
think
do is do everything that I can do to assist that, but I can't change it.
that's right. I think it is the donor method you're talking about because I've done that for a long time. And I actually I've two things I wanted to say what you just
Yeah.
talked about. First of all, with you're saying how exercise is such a good way of releasing, and that's how I coped with my
Mm,
trauma before this other trauma came in. But when movement is taken away from you when you're injured, that is the most challenging thing. And I think that's why it affected me
mm,
so badly because when you can't move and you can't look after yourself and you're isolated, that's real fear. And like it's a
yeah.
matter of how do I get food for the day? Uh, and when the body doesn't heal, like it just drags on. You think there's no end. I Googled during that time, how do I release stress? And all the things that like 20 things on a list, all involve that you actually get outside, move, go
Yeah.
into nature, but if you can't, how do you release the fear or like the stress or the trauma? So that was extremely challenging, and I'm sure anyone that has been in the same situation would agree with that. And about the letting go thing,
This is the book, by the way. Can you see that? It's
mm,
by if I don't know if you guys can see
no,
that.
I can't really see
Okay,
it. So
it's on my Audible. It's The Pathway of Surrender by David R. Hawkins.
okay, no, I haven't heard of him.
It's a
Yeah,
great book. But anyway,
yeah, yeah. There's so many books, and they all talk about the same thing in a different way.
all right. Nothing new under the sun.
And had the Sedona method that I actually brought it in, and there's another author that is extremely good, which is Rhonda Byrne. Not sure if you heard of her, but she's talking about this awareness. And if you have emotions coming up, you just be aware of them, and then I combine that with the Sedona method. So when I feel, I'll just let the feeling be there, and then I will analyze where is this feeling coming from? Is it from control, approval, security, separation, or oneness? And once you identify it, then you work on letting go of that feeling. And any emotion that comes up will come from one of those. And that is extremely effective. So like combining with just allowing the emotion being there and then releasing that feeling. And
Yeah.
it will soften it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And this book does touch on that as well a little bit,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's probably from a different angle, like you said, but super, super great information.
I know.
And,
I know.
for
You need
anybody,
100 tools to heal yourself basically.
it's a
Because
journey.
it is. Yeah.
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 People have to realize that. And I think you touched on something that is people don't go into this journey. They don't approach it because healing can be painful.
Hmm.
If what happens, I think a lot of times is people will have a trauma or have something that they're dealing with and they stuff it and it's going to manifest into something in the body. It's going to come out, whether that comes out in some type of trigger or anger or whatever. But what happens is that when it's either stuck in the body or we can release it. Releasing it's painful sometimes because
Yeah.
it scratches back the wound, but the plus side to that is once you feel it's the same way as letting go. Allow yourself to feel that pain for
Yes.
moments so that then you can grow past it for an eternity.
If only we had these tools when we grew up, then you could
I
have dealt
know.
with it in a different way from the beginning.
Well, it's a big problem, I think. I do talk about this a lot, and I can't speak to what it's like in Australia, but I know here in America, we don't have any courses or like any type of resources for kids. I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old, and it's really sad because they're not taught how to manage their emotions. Now, I try to teach them, but when they're in school 8 hours a day and then they come home, it's like, okay, now we're working on emotional management. And it's sometimes hard as a parent, I feel like, because they think they disregard everything I say as not important.
Yeah.
But I would love for them to get multiple resources from people that actually talks about managing emotions. And I think it's a real problem that we don't have any training on that when it's so important to the human connections that we have with other human beings.
Yes. And just imagine if they were touching on those subjects in school, like allowing people, maybe especially men, allow them to feel and express emotions in a different way rather than anger and violence.
Yeah. Or give them an outlet for
Exactly.
like, maybe they have an outlet. And I think sports are good for that because they
Yeah.
do have an outlet there. But I think having the intention behind it is so important. And a lot of kids aren't talked to about this. Now, there are
Mm.
some great coaches, let me say, because my son plays basketball. There are some phenomenal coaches that do this kind of mindset work, but not all of them do. And then
No.
you have so many kids that's not in sports. So those kids get,
Well,
I
even
feel
if you
like, left
are in
behind.
sport, I mean, obviously fitness, yeah, it's another way of, I guess it's a way of releasing, but it's also, it doesn't fix the trauma. It doesn't fix it.
Hmm. Right.
It just makes you feel better at the time. Because if you
Right.
take away it, then you feel pretty awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tess, I know we're getting close to an hour here, and I do want you to have the opportunity to tell people where to find you. And if someone was interested in going through your coaching and figuring out how to tap into their trauma through the body work, where would they find you and how would they connect with you?
Yeah, so I got a website. It's testdetoxcoaching.com. And yeah, I got a few different books that touches on the different types of healing. I have one about detoxing, and one about fascia release and trauma release, which is based on the journey that I went through. And I have one about adrenal fatigue. There's a few different ones. You can find it all on my website. And I do online coaching in all three areas, as in the mind body detoxing and also like alignment or fascia release, basically whatever people might need, it's personalized. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I think your work is so valuable and what you're doing is so valuable. And it's a very holistic and natural approach. So I'm highly favor that ahead of Western medicine.
yes,
I
100%.
think if, yeah, try to do it as natural as possible first. But it has been such a pleasure chatting with you. And I'll put all of your information in the show notes. But one final question I do have for you. If you had to leave my audience with maybe like one big takeaway or one thing that just kind of overall, what would that be?
Yeah, don't give up, and work on what's going to be like the core trigger, which probably could be fear, and work on that, releasing it, and try to find your modalities of doing it, because you're going to need more than one. One might work to begin with, and then you might need to switch to something else. See it as a journey, but each time you will get one step further,
Mm,
closer to getting better.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time
Thank you
today.
so much
I
for having me.
appreciate you. Hey there, friend. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time here with us on Through the Trauma podcast. Your presence means more than you know. If this episode has spoke to you or gave you hope or made you feel just a little bit less alone, then I would love it if you would take a second, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who truly needs to hear it. Every share, every comment, every listen, it all helps our message get out and reach those who truly need it the most. Healing happens inside of a community, and together we are breaking the silence and creating space for transformation. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You are not alone.